Thank you very much, my senior elders, Pastor Komati, my senior lecturer. Um, I've got two lecturers in the room, so the measurement of leadership is about the children you produce. So, my doctor here, in my first year, I was taught a subject on sexuality. Dr. Immaculate, she was my lecturer in university, and I think the other one is somewhere my mathematics lecturer. I'll run through very quickly because we still have to digest a couple of things. I'm very grateful to all the leaders that are here. Uh, I'm very humbled to be part of this discussion. I'll be looking about transition, more interestingly, centered on identity crisis. Years ago, we began to see that the divorce cases were going up. So me and my lecturer, my mentor at UNAM, doctor, so we decided to go to the court and do a research for 1 year. So we'd go there, interview people who are divorcing, and trying to find out what is really going on some of those. Unfortunately, we didn't publish that research, but it's still there. The findings were quite very interesting. Um, and some of the issues, I put it around, one of the themes that come up with in that investigation was identity. Who are we as Namibians? Because sometimes the borrowing of cultures has an influence in terms of what we become. So I'll run through some of these issues. Now, here's the problem statement. There are a couple of statistics I've thrown in there. Some they have, I might have run quickly because some of the issues have already been mentioned. So I'll run very quickly. I can stop at this slide and end my presentation. Is it Tuesday or Monday? So NSA came to our office to give us the updated statistics overall. So they came to the Council of Churches, and I was the one leading that. And they gave us a couple of issues. And some of them I've highlighted here, but it would be very good. I encourage all the leaders, pass by NSA, get that book. It's for free. Just get those copies. Labor survey, and then the actual general statistics. And it's going to give you from marriage, I don't think they dealt with the divorce, but from marriage statistics, we did discuss a little bit, and several further factors. They only get data, and we do the explanation in terms of the root causes at what happens where. So number one, this one, you can Google them, everything that I have here, you can find them on internet, just Google. 72,000 children born to unmarried parents in 2021. 72,000 children born to unmarried parents in 2021. This something. Fatherlessness, children, and consequences. The dates are there. You can find those too. And then there was a recent report. Last week on the Father's Day, I was invited by one bank, gathered about 50 men, to speak to them about fatherhood issues. And I saw one old man weeping and crying, and I got him, what is happening? I said, the things you've said, I've never heard them until today. And I was talking about the transitioning, the challenge from manhood to fatherhood. Very, very imperative. Now, within that week, there were a couple of reports that came out by the Namibian newspaper. These are, I lowered the numbers. 4,000 children who were born this past, whether months or year, and 2,000 of them in Windhoek, and fathers were absent. This is last week. You can Google these ones. 4,000 children have been born these past few months. 2,000 in Windhoek, and their fathers were absent. From the discussion with Namibian Statistics Agency, one of the discussion was 50% houses in the country are female-headed households. Now, we sat down to look at these numbers as has led to half of the country household a female-headed household. And you see how this comes up on issues of identity and what some of the issues James has mentioned. So these are a couple of that. Now, I did talk about this. I haven't checked with the courts yet, but we have an average of 80 divorce cases. It goes to 150 sometimes per month. 80 divorce cases average. This is like, I'm saying I've lowered the numbers. This gives you a picture. This gives you a picture of where we are at the moment. Now, having that in mind, what issues comes in? And I've given you an overview of the fatherlessness. And this is based on research I'll just list. One of the issues mentioned, when there's no father in the house, identity crisis, teenage pregnancy, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, crime, behavior disorder, depression, anxiety, suicide. I've been on the Ministry of Health Suicide Task Force under CCN. From 2019 to 2023, Namibia was one of the highest suicide rates in Africa. Namibia. From that time, for about 3 years consecutively, we had about 600 men and above committing suicide. And this is some of the list issues I'm listing there. And I think James, the other day on the presentation, he talks about 2 million men are in prison, the whole Africa. 2 million. When he was presenting, James has that statistics. That is a prison. 2 million men around Africa are in prison today. These are some of the issues that comes in as you are looking at this. Now, this is the combination of what I was presenting with the bank, the men at the bank. So I'm going to use this as I've just given the problem analysis. So I'm running very quickly. I don't want to spend more than 10, 15 minutes here. I was talking to those people, but I used this process. Now we are coming to the solution. When you're looking at identity, you're looking at self-discovery. And there are a couple of things God has given. The reason why a child is created by two people, the male and female, God had it in his mind to say even the upbringing, the balance of this child will require the two people involved. And then once it's one-sided, as I've given already the statistics, it becomes a problem in the balancing of that child. So you are looking, I was using the butterfly as some kind of analysis there. Now, as a Christian, I'll use the Bible verse. Since I'm dealing with the foundation, Genesis, God creates man, and we find our identity in God. We find our life, the balance of marriage, the balance of family, the balance and the principle, the values, morality, fatherhood, motherhood, love, joy, peace. All these are founded within the center of God. And if God is the center of morality, once we begin to separate God, we begin to measure our own identity first and then morality. Now, the problem with the morality and identity that is separated, if we have to put God at the center, is that it's so fluid in its sense. It can swift either far end left or the far end right. That's where the danger is. So, as a person, you do not find stability. When I speak to men, I say to them that the reason you can't give love to your children is that you never received love. You can't give what you did not receive. You cannot give what you did not receive. And we go back to some of these principles and foundations to look at that. Now, as I'm trying to find a solution here, I don't just want to speak about the problems. Let's look at the crisis. So a child is born, male and female. You are a seed, you are a gift to the earth, and you come with gifts along. I love point number 3. Now the problem comes in. This seed, this gift, is born in a broken family. Dysfunctional family. I can use myself as an example. My father had 4 wives, 24 children, including concubines. Imagine me going to my father, saying, Father, teach me how to be faithful to my wife, one wife. So, and he has 4 wives, he's not even faithful to any of them. And he has 24 kids, we are still counting. And then me going to my father, say, teach me how to be faithful to my wife. Broken families. So now I have to begin to go somewhere else if I'm going to find a proper identity structure. Because this man definitely, he's confused. He's all over the place. Unfortunately, I don't think my father, was he controlled by the head down or the head up? Yeah, we just have to say the things as they are. Because I don't know what is controlling him, what is leading him. So which head is which? Born into a dysfunctional family, you begin to find identity crisis. As James has alluded, I've written over 20 books. And one of the books I've written is called Men with Manners. When we were doing the research on fatherhood and all this around the globe, different research, they were saying about identity crisis and masculinity crisis. I have a full document on it. I said there is a problem where men don't even want to be men. It's a big, big problem. Dysfunctional. So you begin to look at that. How do you begin to find your identity? Because why this is important? Your identity builds your values. Your identity, Anton. Because I know who I am as Anton, there are certain places you can't find me. Because of my identity. So my identity builds onto values. Because I know who I am, therefore, by the virtue of being Anton and the value placed on me, there are a couple of values surrounding me on basis on that identity. And principles. What I can do, what I cannot do, because of just knowing who I am. This is funny. I used to tell people, I said, do you know the first time, by the way, I'm originally from Zambia. The first time I wear the jean was when I came to this country. We grew up in a community where I wasn't allowed. Because they're telling you, all the uncles, like, you know who you are. You can't, even wearing short sleeves. Whether it was good or bad, I'm just using that as an example. Because of the identity placed on you, even how you dress, what you talk, how you walk, everything had to be surrounding that. So identity is bigger than what we think. Every time there's an identity crisis, dysfunction, everything goes wrong. Because you talk about values, principles, you're just going to float with wind, whichever direction that goes. Peer pressure comes in. What James talks about, being influenced by friends, either to drink or kind of. There's another concern that we have now. Rehoboth was a center for drug traffickers. Now it has become Commersdale. Maybe you don't know that. There's a big problem of drugs in Commersdale. It used to be Rehoboth. Now it has come right here. And all these things, as you find God men hooked up to these things. So it's very imperative as we are looking at this discovery. And then we go into the process. After your discovery, I love studying a bit about the caterpillar. When it comes from the egg, goes into the caterpillar, its job in that period is just to feed. And what it feeds on determines what it becomes as a butterfly. It's just to eat. It will just move around. Now, at this stage, what are we feeding on? This is what's going to inform us or form us. Right now, you're in the media, TikTok, and James will tell you a little bit about social media bullying and all kind of. There's so many information out there floating. And what we feed on, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, even sexually, whatever you feed on sexually, begins to define what we become in terms of identity, in terms of men or women. And there's so much toxic information out there, unverified, that people are feeding on. As James was saying, is it a cussy vibe or cussy culture that is coming around? And you should see the information that is spreading around there. And what are they feeding on? You don't get surprised when the results come out. I have a professor, a friend of mine, who often says, Tony, if you want to see where the behavior is headed, listen to the language. The language will often indicate. He just demonstrated the language. James demonstrated the language. The language will give you an indication where the behavior is headed. So that is in terms of that process of finding yourself transitioning, be it you're male or female. We begin separation. And I remember when I reached this age. And this some of us, we reach this age, is called, some of them is called midlife crisis. Between 30, 35, 40. It's a stage where I remember attempting suicide 3 times at that stage. Because I reach at the stage where I am, it's hard to believe, right? I reach at the stage where I don't seem to be moving either left or right. I'm stuck in between. And I look around, everybody seems to be moving. Everybody seems to be progressing. And if you look, this is the time either men or women get into alcohol abuse, promiscuity. It's all kind of thing. Now, the cocoon there is very interesting. Now, this is what, let me say to men, that becomes your curve. You know what men do in the curve? They bring their toys. If as a child your toys were cars and small guns, now at this stage, your toys is alcohol, sex, drugs, and you drag them into this curve. And we don't know what comes out of this curve. Because it's a curve where you are locked and you want to play with your toys. Either you can be locked and come out better. Character shaped, vulnerability, transformation. Actually, that's the purpose of being locked. But most men or women, when they come out of this cocoon, it's catastrophic. So what happens when you're locked in, you're isolated, separated? There's that transition. And if you don't have something stronger around you that speaks to you, your outcome, when you come out, it will be unthinkable. Others come out of here and they can begin to fly. Others come out and they drown. Because it's a very critical moment when you're trying to find yourself. Unfortunately, I just have to say this one. Some find that process while they're in the marriage. You're married and you're trying to figure out, you're in the cocoon. Be like, oh, Jesus. Now you are all over the place. And she doesn't even know what is going on with you. He doesn't talk to me. He just goes out and drink with boys. But others comes out, going through the stages, hope, light, all that. You can come out and begin to fly. Others, not all butterfly. This is a story I've never heard. Not all butterfly comes out of cocoon. Some, they die in there. So, as we are discussing this intimate discussion, These are some of the issues and solution we can begin to go back to. We are looking for a healthy family. I'm closing up. This is my second last. These are words I like. In me, I define character as 3 words: discipline, integrity, and humility. Every time you want to be a man of character, a woman of character, those are 3 elements to me that are very vital. Discipline has 2 sides: emotional self-control, work ethics control. That is discipline. And then integrity. Be honest. Be vulnerable. That is what builds your character. And then humility, easily to apologize. This is what an old man says. Anton, a good man apologizes, a great man corrects his mistakes. That's the difference. There are those who are just good. They just keep apologizing all the time, but they're never correcting their mistakes. A good man apologizes, a great man corrects his mistakes. Humility is that stage where you can be corrected, you can forgive. Is that stage. Once you have those 3 elements, in my understanding, you are a man of character, you are a woman of character. The other words down there, it's about being a king, priest, and all that. It's just part. As I'm closing, I drop this. Life is beyond sex, money, car. Anton, you have 4 children, 2 girls and 2 boys. When I'm done, the only legacy that is left is what I've put into those kids. James, when we were doing parenting with dreams, I would meet parents and say, please, train your children well because I'm investing in my children. Because why? Somewhere, somehow, they're going to meet up with your kids. And I don't want your crooked kids to mess up the investment I've put so much in my kids. I'm trying to build these boys to be good boys and good girls. I'm putting in values. And do the same because I know my children will fall in love with your kids. So we would say that legacy. What are you leaving behind when all the cars, everything is done, the houses? What you leave into the hearts of those kids is only what matters. And that's how you are remembered. Not the car, not the house, not the fame. What you leave into your children, that's how we remember you. When they are passing by, I said, did you see the crazy kids? Those are kids who left. You mean those ones? And we see good kids. I said, do you remember the gender guy, James? That is his child. Oh, he's doing good. You have the idea? What you are leaving behind, that legacy, it's what you are counted with, be it a woman or a man. Find yourself loving, focus, gentle, be good, be intentional. All these are solutions that we're trying to say. If we're going to begin the healing process in our nation, in our community, these are some of the values. Be an example. Just start with that. Me, Anton, be an example. Yeah. I'll tell James, I said, if you find me with a side chick, just pull me aside. I said, Tony, who is that? Just be an example. Be it to a mother or a father. This is what we're looking for. Loving, kind, better. Pull yourself up. As I close, find help, healing, peace. It starts with you. No matter how the foundation started, as broken as you are, you can find healing. You can find peace. You can find love, and you can find purpose. And then we can build a better society. God bless you. Thank you.